What do you do when some part of you wants to move forward and another part won't budge? This is when somatic healing practices like somatic parts work can be really helpful. Essentially, somatic parts work acknowledges that there are different parts or aspects of ourselves, and they each have different preferences and fears and motivations and experiences, and so essentially different opinions on how life should go. It also acknowledges that those parts are often held in parts of our body. So I might have a place in my heart, maybe that feels open and expansive, and then maybe a place in the back of my heart that feels guarded and protective. So those aspects of myself are being held in the body. And when I settle into those places, I can start to notice how they feel. They'll feel different. Front of my heart, back of my heart, a shoulder, an elbow, whatever you're choosing, these places will feel different when you settle into them. So if you're settling in with a kind of stressor, for example, you might notice some tension in one place in your body and some openness in another place in your body. And that might be a way to explore why, for example, you can't get yourself to move forward. One part is ready to go, and the other part is feeling nervous. So when we settle into these places in the body and we notice things like sensations, thoughts, images, emotions, it gives us a lot of information about what the body is trying to tell us. And then we learn to have a conversation. So let's take another example. There's a conversation I've been wanting to have with someone, and I've probably practiced it in my head 1,000 times, and I'm ready to have it. But then in the moment when I have that opportunity, some part of me kind of holds back. I can't get myself to do it. Likely that's because some part is ready and another part isn't. And the part that isn't is generally the part of ourselves that is feeling nervous or afraid. It's protecting us, right? Because our nervous system was designed to keep us safe, to keep us alive. And we learned lots and lots of kind of defense mechanisms to keep ourselves safe. So now when I come to this conversation, even though I know that it will be okay to have it, some part of me doesn't trust that. So it keeps avoiding and avoiding. And that avoiding or avoidance is a protective measure. And when we work with somatic parts work, what we do is we notice that part that's feeling scared. And instead of trying to bully it into doing the thing, which just makes it dig its heels in even more, we bring in tenderness, we bring in compassion, we bring in understanding. In having a conversation with that part, we start to get, oh, it's feeling nervous. It's kind of moving through an old pattern because that was what worked in the past. And we have a kind of conversation with ourselves. Sometimes we have a conversation between both parts, the parts that are ready to move forward and the parts that aren't. This is somatic parts work in a nutshell. And I want to offer you a practice so that you can start to explore it. What I do like to say around parts work is that if something that is coming up starts to make you feel really uncomfortable, you may start getting dysregulated. You might start feeling that sort of fight or flight or freeze response. And then you want to give yourself a break. So, any kind of healing practice has to be done from a space of regulation. Otherwise, again, those parts are just going to clam up or create some roadblocks for you. So we're just going to do a really gentle exploratory practice. But again, if you start to feel anxious, just drop back a little bit, come back to your breath, come back to those practices that you know help you to relax a little bit, help you to get more grounded. So if you would like to join me, you can bring yourself into a comfortable shape and give yourself a few deep breaths. Let those exhales be nice and long. Remember that a long exhale helps turn on that parasympathetic or rest and digest response. So, in my 5 pillars, I'm always starting with nervous system regulation, always starting with finding a place where we feel grounded and then bringing in a little self compassion. So, we're not doing this practice in order to create more judgment. There's plenty of that to go around. Instead, we're working through a practice that leaves us feeling more grounded, more self understood, more friendly. And if taking a long exhale isn't giving you that kind of settled feeling, then instead you might just pay attention to the places in your body that are in contact with support. So if you're in a seat, feel your cushion beneath you, the chair against your back. Just notice the ways that in this moment you're feeling supported. And if you can, let yourself relax into that support. And once you start to feel settled, you might bring to mind some kind of inner conflict. Maybe there's a conversation you've been trying to have. Maybe there's an action you've been trying to take. Some small, like it can really be a small kind of subtle thing, something that's been on your list and it keeps getting dropped to the bottom of the list. There's some resistance there. Bring one of those things to mind. We all have lots of them. And just notice what comes up for you when you name it. There's probably some kind of story about the pros and cons, about what it feels like to think about it, about the stress that arises. Just notice the story that arises around this one action. And then notice what you feel in your body. So when you let yourself tell that story, notice if there's a place in your body that maybe feels open, expansive, confident, whatever it might be. And there might also be a place in your body that feels contracted, restricted, a little bit braced. And bring yourself or your awareness into that space that feels a little braced, a little tense, a little fearful. Notice where that is in your body. And when you pay attention to that space, notice what you notice. There may be sensations or thoughts that arise, an emotion, a memory. Notice what comes up when you're in that just kind of braced place. And you might even just directly ask it what it's thinking or feeling about this action that you've been holding back on. And see if you can take in that information without judgment. Just a kind of curiosity. I wonder what this part of myself is scared about or being protective of me around. Just genuine curiosity about how this part feels about this conflict or action. And then take a pause from information gathering. There might be some kind of support you want to offer that place. You don't have to solve this. You're really just gathering information at this point. And then make your way to that other part, the part that's ready to move forward, that has an opinion about how this should all go, and that feels open or sort of easeful, even about the whole thing. And in that same way, settle into that place in your body. Notice the sensations or thoughts or emotions that arise. and maybe even ask it its opinion, what that part wants to see happen. So you can see that the conflict is between two parts of yourself that have different agendas. And now you have a little bit more information about those agendas. So see if there's some sort of compromise, some way that the scared part could feel a little bit more supported or tended to, some way that the active part or open part could feel a little bit more met. Could these two parts find their way into some kind of first step collaboration? So settle back into the body and just explore in your imagination a kind of conversation between the two parts. And maybe given this just very brief conversation, there is one small action you're ready to take that both parts could be aligned with. It might not solve the whole thing, but one small thing you could do to bring the parts into agreement, but also just a little bit more relationship, a more trusting relationship. So take a moment just to imagine that small step that you could take and feel these parts of yourself building a kind of trust, a deeper relationship. So you can see how you could dive and dive and dive into somatic parts work. Again, it's really just a way to build a trust between different parts of yourself that are often in conflict. And instead of bullying ourselves into doing the things that we want to do, which often happens, or being in this place that feels like avoidance, it's less avoidance and much more a kind of, I just need to get the parts of myself on board. And by acknowledging them, by paying attention to them, by being in conversation with them, we do a lot of work towards conflict resolution between the parts of ourselves. I'm Rachel. Subscribe for more somatic healing practices and nervous system regulation tools.